Hey guys, it's MugenLord here, and I'm back again with another video. And today I want to talk about crossovers. Now, fighting games has been on my mind like just mad crazy for the past couple of weeks. Now we know that Street Fighter V has the arcade edition that's coming out in January. We talked a little bit about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite with the DLC characters that's been revealed, and they will be releasing pretty much I guess next week. Black Panther, Sigma, Monster Hunter. Those three characters will be up for grabs with DLC. But I want to talk about Capcom crossovers in particular. Now I know there's a lot of crossovers. It seems like a lot of companies are doing their crossover games, which I enjoy a lot. You have Shonen Jump with the J-Stars Victory Versus. You have Nintendo with Smash Brothers, and you also have PlayStation with PlayStation All Stars. And to me, in their own right, they are pretty good and they service the fans pretty well. But I want to talk about Capcom because recently I just uploaded a few Mugen videos, and I was playing this one Mugen project called Capcom Universe, and in my opinion I think that's a pretty good Mugen project. It has, you know, a ton of my favorite characters from the Versus series and other Capcom characters that have yet to been seen in, I guess you could say, the 2D universe. You have Tiffany from Rival Schools. Of course, I love the Batu sprite and everything like that. And there's a couple other characters that were shown as assists in Marvel vs. Capcom. They were also made into characters in Capcom Universe. So as I played Capcom Universe Mugen project, it had me thinking. I was saying to myself, well, it's been a while since Capcom have done I guess a mega mix or all-star mix of their Capcom characters and put them all into one game and have them duke it out with one another, either in like a 2D plane or like a 2.5D plane or something similar to like Smash Brothers in a way. But it's been a while since we ever seen something like that, and it's been years, and it's been a game that Capcom had put together a long time ago, and we'll get into that later, and it didn't go too well. But there was another Capcom crossover game that had pretty much engaged my interest, and it never saw the light of day. And that game was called Capcom Fighting All Stars. And now I think about the game, and I was like, how come? What happened to the game? I was super excited for it, is because we have yet to ever see another, I guess, 3D Capcom fighter. Now, Capcom wanted to pretty much capitalize on the 3D space, because we already know that Tekken and Virtual Fighters, and I guess you could say DOA, pretty much dominated their space, and Capcom really wanted to find a way to still capture that audience with 3D fighters and everything. So I remember back in PlayStation Magazine when I first saw screenshots of Capcom Fighting All-Stars, and I was super excited for it, because we were going to see more Capcom characters from the Capcom universe all duke it out into one game, and I was really super looking forward to it. And the thing what really grabbed my interest was it brought back characters from like the Final Fight series, like Mike Hager, and there was a rumor that Guy was supposed to make it into the game. And this is way before we ever seen Guy make an appearance in Street Fighter 4, well, Super Street Fighter 4, or even Cody himself. And it was interesting to see these characters make it into a 3D plane alongside with Poison as well. And there was also rumors that Mega Man and Hayato from Plasma Sword was going to make an appearance in the game. So for those of you who don't know anything about Capcom Fighting All-Stars, here's just a bit of a rundown of how the gameplay worked, and give you a rundown of how the story panned out and everything. So pretty much the gameplay was pretty much like this. The life system was like pretty much 3-tiered. If the player lost one tier, a break moment would occur, and then the fight would pretty much resume, which is much like the life system in Night Warriors. However, the life system was also linked to the power bar. For each tier loss, the character gained an additional level in super combo gauge. At full life, a character only has single level super combos. Then you have super arts were handled in 3 tiers as well, each super costing 1, 2, or 3 levels to use them. The game also had a time limit, and also depending on how long you took to finish the game, it give you various different endings. So that was pretty unique for, you know, a 3D fighter of that time period and everything. And they also had these exclusive characters that were created specifically for this game. And you had this character named DD, also known as the God of Thunder. Not much is really known about his character, but his fighting style seems to revolve around punches and electrocutes foes and stuff like that. Also, you had this other character known as Rook, Rook was known as the Fallen Angel. Not much was known about him. And then you had this other character named Death. He was also the main antagonist of this game, and we never yet to see these characters in come through full fruition, is because Capcom had right after that had pretty much canceled the game. Now, there's not really much information of why they canceled it, but people pretty much made speculations. In Japan, they had did location tests as well, where people had got a chance to test the game and play it on site in arcades and arcade machines. And the rumor is, or the speculation is, or the theory, or whatever you want to call it, they were pretty much saying that after people had got together and tried to play test, after they put many years of or months of development into the game, a lot of the fans were pretty much shaky with the game. They said it had potential, and there was potential in the game, but there was some things they really need to work out. So the producer or the director of the game had pretty much bailed out from the project, and this is where things got a little bit weird, because after I seen the screenshots and after a gameplay trailer was released for the game and everything, it just disappeared. No one knew what happened to the game. There were fans that were excited for the game. I was super excited from the game, and nothing else was said about the game. Game Informer never talked about it anymore. PlayStation Magazine never talked about it no more. So everyone just thought the game was just pretty much dead. Now, if you fast forward, after you know, just craving for this game, after just thinking about this game and just the likelihood of us ever getting this game, it was pretty much dead. Like, I didn't know what to say anymore. I didn't know what to think anymore. Fans didn't know what to think anymore. But after that, some new news had just surfaced. It was reported that Yoshinori Ono is one of the producers behind the revival of the Street Fighter franchise with the comeback with Street Fighter 4. He had took over the project, and instead of us continuing to get the Capcom Fighting All-Stars, which everyone was waiting for, instead we have gotten something totally different. It seems as though that the project went a completely different direction, and this is where Capcom practices in their methods of how they produce their games, and how the back and forth backlash from the fan relationship to Capcom relationship had begun to pretty much darken. It began to dampen. It began to build this this love-hate kind of relationship between the fans and Capcom. So after the project was pretty much scrapped, it was retooled once Ono took over, and they decided to give us Capcom Fighting Evolution. And that's right, Capcom Fighting Evolution. Now, I know you guys are pretty much, know or heard of this game. This was one of the worst Capcom, I guess you could say Mega Mix or Capcom crossover games ever created. And it was just a pure example of the direction that Capcom's going with their fighters as far as their practices of reusing assets and everything. This was the pure definition. This is pretty much a licensed Mugen game that they had pretty much sold to us, but Mugen is pretty much done it better, and is free. And that's the thing about a Capcom Evolution fighting game. It was horrible. It pretty much took games from existing franchises, fighting game franchises that were already made and already in the arcades or already on consoles, and these characters were pretty much represented games from different franchises, from Street Fighter, from Darkstalkers, from Red Earth. But the thing that really bothered me the most was most of the roster was filled with Street Fighter characters from Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 3, Street Fighter Alpha, and they took, like, I believe 4 characters from each franchise. And the thing that boggles my mind was, like, how did Capcom thought this was a good idea? What made them think this was a good idea to take characters from mainly Street Fighter and then mix them all together? And the thing is, I think this game would probably have been well received if they took the time and really took the time to rebuild the game from the ground up, instead of just taking assets used from other games, from previous Capcom fighting games, from Street Fighter Alpha and the other games, and all they did was pull those sprites from there and put them all into one game, and it just looked horrible. I mean, extremely horrible. It looked at Red Earth's characters compared to the Street Fighter characters, and it just boggles my mind. And then the thing that hurts it the most, which doesn't make sense, every character pretty much took their gameplay style, whatever gameplay mechanics they had from their franchise, it pretty much transferred over to the Fighter Evolution, the Capcom Fighter Evolution, or Fighting Jam. They pretty much took those mechanics and whatever game they came from, and they mixed them together, which completely created a hot mess. You had different gameplay mechanics just mashed together, and it caused plenty of unbalanced issues and everything like that, and it just didn't make sense at all. And this is where Capcom really took a turn, because you already had fans that were super upset at what they've done as far as the art design, the direction they were going. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a perfect example. They pretty much just took the Versus series in general, period. They pretty much took sprites and took most of their assets from previous games and just copy and paste them in there, and you can look and you can tell that there's an imbalance, there's a mismatch when it's come to art style and art direction. And then what made it worse is when Capcom versus SNK came out. Now, just don't get me wrong, the thing that Capcom does, and this is where the love-hate comes in, despite them using assets from games, from previous games, and putting them together to create a whole nother fighting game, the thing is, Capcom, even though they do that, these games end up still being fun in a way. But Capcom Fighting Evolution was pretty much an exception. This game was horrible, but the thing is, fans, they get upset about what Capcom does, but then when you get down to the grittiness of it, when you get down to the nooks and crannies of the game, the gameplay ends up becoming fun. Marvel vs. Capcom 2, widely received around the FGC, one of the most popular 2D fighting games of all times. And then you have Capcom vs. SNK, one of the most highly regarded fighting games of all time, and still pretty much underrated, because a lot of people at this time have pretty much missed out on that era of fighting games of that time when that game was released. But Capcom had pretty much took and ripped sprites from their previous games at Capcom vs. SNK, and the only thing they really put their work in was into the SNK characters. Now, to bring it back to Fighting Jam, is that if you look at this game, this was pretty much I guess you could say, the nail in the coffin for Capcom in their 2D sprites and what they've done with their 2D fighting game, I guess you could say, department. This was the game that pretty much made Capcom try to sit back and say, you know what, we did a horrible job, we need to just stop fighting games for a long time. And this would brought us to a dark ages of fighting games. Now, even though that Namco was still around producing Tekken games, Tecmo was still around producing Dead or Alive games and everything, and you had Artisan with the Guilty Gear games, but it seemed as though that the fighting game genre doesn't really get its life, or it doesn't jumpstart itself until Capcom comes back into the space and say, hey, we're back, fighting games are back. And that was the thing. Once they disappeared, because after Third Strike and then Fighting Jams, and after the sales and the poor reception from fans, they pulled away and decided to focus and take their assets to other places, like other games like Resident Evil, the Monster Hunter franchise, and other franchises they were building during that time and during that era and that generation of gaming. So now, this made me think, is Capcom repeating the same mistake once again? Now, let's go fast forward. Street Fighter 4 had finally released, and you know, the fans received the game pretty well. It pretty much jumpstart the fighting game genre again. Fighting games is back in this glorious time. We're in the new era of fighting games. Fighting game developers are just throwing out games left and right. Street Fighter 4, it pretty much took the fighting game genre by storm, and that was the thing. Now, you have 3D models, you have three new 3D models, characters are redesigned, new gameplay styles and everything. And Capcom's on the right path. They've been doing the right thing. They've been on the right track. Yeah, they had their bumps and rolls with the Street Fighter 4 franchise, but it have gotten better, especially by the time it got to Ultra Street Fighter 4 version. And then that's when during, I guess you could say, the announcement of Street Fighter Cross Tekken, things started getting a little bit weird, or a little bit tricky here. It seemed as though that Capcom had pretty much bit off more than what they can chew. Street Fighter Cross Tekken to me was a good idea, and I love the crossover and everything, but it seemed as though that Capcom had pretty much started getting back into their little habits again with reusing their assets, because most of the roster consisted of the Capcom side consisted of characters from Street Fighter 4. and we only got a sprinkle of new characters on the Capcom side, which was Poison, Rolento, let me see, Hugo, and Elena. They were the only 4 Capcom characters that we have seen on the Capcom side for Street Fighter Cross Tekken that were completely built from the ground up and new, have yet to be seen in the 3D space from this, from the Street Fighter side. So fans started getting a little scared right there with Street Fighter Cross Tekken, and also of course we had the gym system and the DLC and their practices, but we can talk about that in another video. But I just want to focus on the pattern that Capcom has been doing, especially with their crossover games of reusing assets. And I know it's not just Capcom, other companies does it as well. So then that's when we have Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Now the thing is about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite that has a lot of people upset, and it had a lot of people worried. It had me worried too, and I'm still worried about it. And that's Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite's roster, mainly the Capcom side, that I'm really disappointed in. It seemed like they're following this trend once again, and I'm afraid that if Capcom continue down this path about reusing assets or taking these crossover games and doing little disservice to its fans, that Capcom may pack their bags again and may disappear from the fighting game scene yet again, and we could, I wouldn't say experience another dark age, since things have changed as far as esports and online gameplay and online play and everything like that. But if they continue down this path, I'm afraid there could be a possibility that Capcom may disappear again. And Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, it looks exactly like what I've seen in their past iteration of the Versus series, especially with Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with the reused sprites, and Capcom vs. SNK 2, and now with the Capcom Evolution Fighting Jam. Now look at Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It seems as though that Capcom is doing it yet again. They're taking their reused assets from Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and they bring most of the characters over, and to create a quick game. They create a quick game to try to get consumers to buy into what they're doing. And if the fans doesn't like it, or they receive backlash, they'll decide to retool the game and try to build the game to make sure to get fans to stay on board with the game. And to me, in that opinion, I think that's really crazy. And this topic really had me thinking, because after playing Capcom Universe, it just had me thinking about the potential that Capcom Fighting All Stars had, and it also just brought me back to the history and the practices they've been doing with their content, with their characters, and with their business practices of reusing assets and not even trying their best to at least polish them, or at least make it look good and stuff like that, where everything meshes together well as far as the art direction is concerned. So I want to hear what your opinions are about this. Do you think that if Capcom continue down this path with their fighters by reusing assets and taking characters from their previous games and then putting them on and create a whole nother game, do you think that this could be another nail in the coffin for Capcom? Do you think that this could cause Capcom to go hide and go right back into the basement once again, and we never hear from them as far as fighting games is concerned, and then may resurface, or once again years from now? Do you think there's still hope for Capcom? I wish the best for Capcom. I want Capcom to get their stuff together. But what do you think about it? Do you think that Capcom All-Stars would be Fighting All-Stars would be something that Capcom could do later on in the future? And how would you want that game to be made and everything? So that pretty much wraps up, this video. I just want to talk to you guys about it. It's been on my mind, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. So this is MugenLord, and I'm signing off.